Okay, welcome everyone. Happy International Women's Day. I'm super excited to be having this very timely and needed conversation. I'm here together with three beautiful powerhouse women, all in their own right, in different sectors and different industries. All of us being speakers at the Women's Thrive Summit coming up very soon. I'll be dropping the link as we're going on throughout our conversation. But today's topic is really about female leadership, and are we at a turning point? We're just before we hit live, the ladies and I were just discussing a little bit about what's going on and from their aspect, from their approach, from their role as leaders, what is happening. So I'm very keen and very curious to see how this all unfolds. And today is really about bringing highlighting their experts' advices and recommendations and insights as to what is going on. Today is International Women's Day. Apologies, which is celebrated around the world, and it's really a day where we celebrate the recognition of women and their achievements without regard to divisions, whether national, ethnic, linguistic, cultural, economic, or political. So I'm just reading a quick thing that I've picked up from the UN site at the moment. The UN speaks of International Women's Day as a movement which has been strengthened by four global United Nations Women conferences, has helped make the commemoration a rallying point to build support for women's rights and participation in the political and economic arenas. So I invite you to go and check out more about the history of women's rights. And in the meantime, we are here to take the talk that goes on in conferences and really get down to what is happening in your businesses, what is happening in your areas, what is happening in the boardrooms, okay, into your online sessions, into your day-to-day. And this is where we really the walk the talk, put the money where our mouth is, was the saying. So please join me in welcoming these three amazing ladies. Let's do quick round of introductions. Let's start with Sheba. Sheba's a certified trainer, speaker, and coach, an executive director of the Maxwell Leadership Team, and a DISC trainer and consultant and certified in creating leadership development programs from the Association of Talent Development. She has founded many businesses in human resources. A quick over to you, Sheba, to tell us what is it that you do and really what is the driving force behind your work and what is your mission here today?
Thank you so much, Hannah, for creating this platform and opportunity for us to have such an important discussion. My why is basically to transform the lives of women. I spend my time really serving through speaking, through corporate training, coaching, and leadership development, and that's individually as well as with teams. In order to add value to them, to help them gain the clarity that they need regarding what their picture of success looks like, and then helping them to map out the steps that they need to take in order to get there. So that's my life's work. I've worked in human resources for the last 12 years, at an executive level the past 8 years. And I just have a track record of promotion from within and getting more persons on the leadership team. So that's a passion of mine. I love to see people get clear about what they want and really go after that. And to just be a small part of that process is so fulfilling and gratifying. And to look and see where they were and where they've come, it just warms my heart to know that, you had a little bit to play in getting them to take those action steps.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Promotion from within. I love that. I love the way you said it. Let's move on to Sarah. Sarah and I have been collaborating sometimes, if you've seen us on recent lives. Sarah is an executive advisor and leadership coach who brings difficult business conversations to life with a great deal of compassion. and insights so that you can discover new opportunities for you and your business. Sarah, over to you. Please tell us a little bit more about you and what drives you. What's your driving force?
Yeah, hi. I'm here from actually Potsdam in Germany, but I'm British. I have 2 adopted children, and really having or being given my daughters was kind of the start of kind of my change and my recognition that maybe corporate life wasn't maybe for me. So I left corporate after 17 years, working my way up through engineering and then various leadership positions, because I felt like I didn't fit. And I couldn't work out why. Actually, what happened was I went through burnout. And while I was off with burnout, my mother passed away. And it was that moment of, what am I doing here? Why, I need to show up and take responsibility for my life and be the role model I want my children to see. Not be someone who's caught because she's being paid a lot of money. She's got a very great job title. And so I walked away not knowing what I was going to do, and ended up in coaching as a bit of self-discovery, honestly. And that was back in 2018. But as I went through the coaching program and course and got certified, I got called in to do tech coaching because I'm an engineer. And actually what I realized very quickly is all these tech businesses, be these startups like some of the people I work with, or actually even up to kind of CEO level, they don't need help with the tech. They don't need help with the engineering. They need help with the human skills. They need help with actually leadership, taking leadership back to its core and actually realigning themselves with who they are and how they're showing up in the business, in the work that they're doing, how they're taking decisions. I think for too long we've had these kind of like ulterior personalities, and all of us who've been through corporate can probably understand this. It's like you always put on a shield when you go in, and not you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to actually protect others and make others feel comfortable and be that person you think other people want to see. And I'm just advocating that it's time for us to let go of all these different masks that we're trying to wear and actually enable people to show up in the business as themselves. We've all got a unique contribution we can make to this world, and we do not have enough time to make the changes we need to make when we've only got 21% engagement. But you know what? If we can get to 60, 70% engagement by building inclusive workforces where diverse teams can thrive, innovation will thrive, and we can go and solve all these problems around us today. Now, I mainly work in tech, and I quite often say, you know what? Tech companies have got an amazing opportunity because tech will be in every solution of anything, be it, world hunger, be it equality, be it actually leadership, developing real leadership, getting back to the core of what leadership is meant to be. Tech will be in the solution to everything. So that means all these tech companies and all these startups, they've got an amazing opportunity if they can actually put the heart back into our businesses and actually reconnect with our people and, enable them to feel belonging and psychological safety within the business. And to me, this is important. We start one person at a time. And the more we can help people actually understand this with compassion for where they are today. They've all been promoted as great individual achievers. And now we're saying, look, leadership's actually over here. Oops. So we've got to help them. We've got to take people on that journey. And it's a very individual journey. And so we've got to create spaces where people can be vulnerable. And that's my kind of superpower, really, is going in and creating these spaces.
Thank you, Sarah. We only just started. We haven't even finished our introductions, and so far what we're hearing, I know we're already going to pick out such amazing quotes and mic drop moments, and it's already coming in. So last but not least, Kawtar, who's with us today. She's the founder of Conscious Togetherness, a trained true purpose coach, faculty and mentor with Leadership That Works India, and co-host of the Gathering of Change Agents with the True Purpose Institute in the United States. Kawtar, over to you. Tell us more about you and what is your mission? What drives you?
Thank you so much, Hannah. Well, very much like we heard from Sheba, Sarah, and yourself, my mission is really to create a world where people can thrive. And for myself, the awakening came when I realized that I was trained as a lawyer. And so I realized here we are, we have these laws, these policies, that are supposed to create equality, that are supposed to help us to feel safe, to protect us. And yet, as a woman who's had to work through a lot of trauma from systems, I realized the laws are not enough. And I started to look for the gap. And where I found the gap is in the mindset, is in the heart set, beyond the mindset. We have these conditioned ways of living that create separation. And it can be on the level of gender, it can be on the level of culture, but very much like what was said, it's all these ways that we've learned to show up with our masks on, with our barriers up to each other. And my work comes into dropping those barriers and letting us know being human is not perfect. And what we need to drop is that addiction that we have to the idea of perfection, and learn to show up authentically, learn to work from our skills, because when we work from our skills, we work from flow, like from our gifts and talents beyond just the skills we're conditioned into. And then we sort of each find our natural place that adds into the collective, and working really in integrity with our values and with the world we want to create. And so I kind of bring the cross-cultural learning, I bring the trauma-informed lens in service to a world that's more diverse and where everyone can live in dignity and peace.
That's amazing. I'm sitting with that a moment. I'm just having a ooh, let's soak that in, ladies. It's such a pleasure to have you here, and women from different backgrounds, from in different industries. What a pleasure. Before we dive into our topic, by the way, I'm Hannah. For those of you who are new in my space, or if you're watching this in somewhere in the future, my name is Hannah. I'm a business strategist and mindset coach. I empower leaders with strategy, mindset, and emotional intelligence to build a sustainable and aligned business that is not only good for their pockets, but good for humanity and good for each other. So today's topic is female leadership. Are we at a turning point? But before we go in, I would really, on this occasion of International Women's Day, love to take a moment of silence in honor of the women before us who got us here. The women who fought the fight tooth and nail to bring justice and rights to women, to the girls and the women who are still fighting, who are facing horrible crimes to this day, in this moment. It just makes I'm feeling very emotional today. I think I should not have watched the news. It's whatever's going on right now, it just should not be happening. So I really want to just take a moment in gratitude, in hope, in peace, and in unity. Thank you. And with that, female leadership. Where are we going? What's happening? What's going on? There are so many places we can start this conversation from, ladies, right? And in fact, this topic came about because I was having conversations. We were having conversations behind closed doors in our little Zoom rooms and our little containers. And it is part of my mission, in fact, this year. And moving forward, to bring more of these conversations out into the open, into public spaces, so we can have more of a dialogue together, right? I'm sure you can agree with me, ladies, that we're always having these discussions as women together in very small containers. But when are we coming together as a larger community, wider communities, where we can actually bring solutions, where we can actually stop for a moment and think, how does this apply to my life? How does this apply to my business? How am I implementing or adopting these leadership strategies for myself and for my team? And there are just a few sort of, I'm going to set out just a little bit of the context of where this conversation is coming from, and we can start riffing on them. And ladies, I'm going to pass the mic to you. But what I feel is that there are a lot of things happening, global circumstances, changes, shifts, even something as simple as, not as simple, I'm not sure where that word came from, but something like what we've just been through, right? The whole pandemic. For the last couple of years, I have heard and read people say, leaders, experts, influencers say how this has negatively impacted female leadership, because we have seen a group of female leaders exiting their role as leaders because due to, I don't know, not being able to what's the word? Not being able to
Hope, perhaps.
thank you. Not being able to cope with family demands or whatever is going on, or the stress of the pandemic. Whilst on the opposite end, we also have people saying that this has actually is reshaping. It's reshaping our systems. It's rethinking the way we work. It's giving women the opportunity to hold leadership roles whilst, for example, entering motherhood, or dealing with, or handling, or being able to travel and look at all of their other hobbies, spend time in their hobbies, travel, and do whatever it is that they want to do. So maybe we can start riffing on these sort of things, ladies. I'd love to hear your opinion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. I'd love to share maybe a little bit about that. I think for me, what I like to say is that we're actually awakening. It's not that we're not able to cope. The real problem is that we live within systems that are not designed to honor who we are as human beings. And so the women that are leaving the workplace are awakening to these systems that consistently demand of us more than a human body can physically take, more than a human mind and spirit are supposed to process in the span of 24 hours or a year. And so I think what we're doing is reclaiming who we are as human beings. And the women are the first ones because they live under enormous pressure. But at the same time, the truth is women are brave. They are courageous enough to say, enough, this isn't working. And I am going to set out there not knowing what works and find out what it is.
I love that, Kawtar, because I was thinking as Hannah was talking about it, that I don't think it's an issue of not being able to cope. I think you're right that it was an awakening for many women because you didn't realize just how much of your time and energy you gave to your job. And then you were thrust into an environment in a pandemic where you had to juggle all of these balls with family being at home, being in lockdown, kids being on virtual learning, and you become the teacher. So your Zoom meetings, the schooling and all of this stuff is going on. And then you realize like the demands of the job, even though you weren't physically in the work environment, the demands of the job and unrealistic expectations many times from persons whose circumstances may be different than ours, right? As mothers, or in the context of our families, our dynamics may be a bit different. And so there are these unrealistic expectations as to, what is intrusion? Like, at which point don't you contact me? Like, what becomes my personal time and space for my family, for me to be able to recharge, right? And so these things became like front and center, and real life issues that people were dealing with, and dealing with a pandemic, dealing with probably salary cuts and other, financial issues. And they realized also that I have a choice. I have a choice. I have the power to make a choice. And so if I have to choose between holding on to a role because it provides a certain level of income versus keeping my sanity, being at peace, being able to be authentically me and to thrive in an environment that I get to choose how it works for me and my family, then I'm probably going to make the choice that's best for me, because I recognize that I'm surviving a pandemic. I'm living on less resources. And so that then becomes clear to you that, look, while I thought that this job meant so much because of the income, simultaneously, I'm making less money, but I am still making it work and surviving. And so people made the choice that was best for them. But it begs the question of organizations. Like, what are you doing to become human again, to prioritize the well-being of your team members? Like, do you consider all of the dynamics that makes them an individual, and how they're able to then show up at work authentically and enjoy the work that they do, be fulfilled in the work that they do, but still have that time and attention to give to things that they enjoy and to their family? And so that is something that organizations need to look at. So one of the things that we did, I'm an HR director also for a hotel group, and hospitality is hard, right? It is time, it demands your time. And for many years, that was the industry. You work 6 or 7 days a week and you just crash and burn. And, you just said it's hospitality, that's what it is. So we introduced a wellness day. That's a paid day off. And every week, in addition to your regular day off, you can take your wellness day. And I mean, the reception from the team, they were so grateful for it, because that gave them an additional day to take care of themselves, to spend time with their families. And so these are things that as organizations, we have to become human again. We have to put ourselves in the context of our employees and what they deal with, and understand what their issues are, and try to bridge that gap. Otherwise, we would continue to lose people.
Yeah, I like the examples here, because it's almost like the McKinsey and Needham report was saying, is like we're losing women, especially at the higher levels, faster out of businesses. And actually we're going backwards in terms of equality, because for every 2 that are leaving, effectively only 1's joining the leadership positions. So when you look at it like that, well, why, like you say, why are women leaving? And I feel like you both said, it's almost like we've had this through the pandemic. It wasn't wished for by anybody, but actually it's created a global awareness, or increase in awareness, or increase in consciousness, and especially from women. And we've seen this in the fact that, like you say, I've got choices. Actually, is this good enough for me? Is this really where I want to be? Is this actually something that I want to invest all that energy in? And, they're saying, well, is it why, like you said, why can't women cope? And it's not about coping. It's actually making a conscious choice. Can I change this organization? Can I create something? Because a lot of the women we see around us, and I'm sure you see this everywhere, is they're not just doing their job. They're doing DEI stuff. They're doing all these additional stuff that's on top of their jobs. So actually they're putting in so much effort. And when they have to go and ask for money for these additional activities they're doing, which are effectively on top, unpaid, they then get pushback as to how much they want to invest or why that's important. And it's like, well, okay, what values do we have, and how are these aligning with our values? So it feels almost like they're getting cornered. And it's almost, I see, like the higher you go, almost like the smaller the gets to, you're on a tightrope and you're trying to balance on this tightrope. And I think a lot of people are just like, you know what? No, my life is worth more than this. And like you say, it's a systemic thing that we've got to be able to create this change in organizations to recognize, okay, you say you want more women in leadership. How are you going to achieve it? What are the systems that are currently holding women back? And they could be, like you say, not getting enough holidays, or not being able to prioritize when they actually want to be with their families and other things. But you know what? This is men as well. And I think actually what I kind of say is, we're a bit like we're the canaries. We feel it first. Mm-hmm. We're not willing to go that distance and like continue to push to something when we feel like it's not serving us. We get to that realization sooner. But you know what? I reckon a lot of men are going to start leaving these organizations too. I think it's just a sign that there is something systemically wrong in the organization that's not encouraging people to bring their full selves. And people feel like they can't change it. And you know what? If they're leaving because they feel like they can't change it, I'm celebrating them, because we want them to be in a space where they can contribute. And that, like you say, maybe it's starting something their own, maybe it's just moving to a different business. And I really want that we give women and everybody the tools to actually say, do I fit here? Is this where I can bring my most value? Is this where I can contribute? And if not, yes, I need to leave because I owe that to myself. I invest so much time and energy in my career that actually, I get to choose where I invest that.
Amazing. My question is from an organizational level, from business owners, what is it that they can do to start changing this, to start really having human-friendly systems and supportive work environments or structures that attracts more women in their leadership roles? Like, great wellness days are amazing, and from the employer side or from your own end, checking, does this align with me or not? But what else can we be doing?
They can listen.
I think I would go on.
They can start by listening. I think a lot of times there's just a lack of understanding. I was speaking today at another event, and one of the things I shared was, for many years, the senior leaders who are male would call a 3 p.m. meeting, right? And 3 p.m. is a time when you normally pick up your children from school. So I'm a widow. So at 3 p.m., I have to pick up my children. But I would, for years, just ask my mom or ask my sister or find someone to pick up the children if a meeting was called for 3 p.m. And then one day last year, I'm sitting in a meeting, 3 p.m. meeting, and I had asked for someone else to pick up my children. And my phone kept ringing from this number that I didn't recognize. And I decided to step out and take the call. And it was my daughter. And she was calling to say that no one picked them up. And I went back into the meeting. And when it was over, I said to the general manager, I am never doing a 3 p.m. meeting again. I am in a meeting and my children were not picked up on time. I said, I'm not doing it. It doesn't work for me. And he said, oh, okay, no problem. We'll change the meeting. And in that moment, I thought to myself, why did I subject myself to 3-4 years of allowing that to happen? Because I just thought that I couldn't say I can't do a 3 p.m. because everyone else is agreeing to a 3 p.m. Sometimes we just need to have the conversation, and our leaders need to listen. Because once they understand the dynamics, maybe they're willing to make changes, but many times we don't even have the conversations. So start from that point, having the difficult conversations, listening, seeking to understand, and then coming up with solutions that work for everyone. Because we all have lives, even those who make decisions that are not in our best interest, they also have lives and they have boundaries. So we have to be able to set some boundaries for ourselves as well. And that requires having difficult conversations and being open in our discussions and being willing to listen and to allow a dialogue to take place that fosters solutions that's accommodating to all parties.
I love that. I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face going, yes, yes, yes. Because I completely agree with everything that you said, and your examples heartbreaking at the same time as just actually affirmative, that when it goes too far, and that's when we make this call, and actually we can redesign sooner, but we just don't see the opportunities, and it's helping people see that. But back to Hannah's question was, what's the one thing the leaders can do? And I think I truly do not believe that most people get out of bed in the morning to make somebody else's life hard. I think we're all trying to do things right. And if we go in from that perspective, then the actions that we need to take to create more inclusive environments are invisible or unconscious to the leadership teams today. And I believe this is actually true. I believe we need to help raise the level of consciousness of senior leaders, which means to enable them to be able to have spaces where they can be vulnerable, where they can be uncomfortable, where they can be challenged. Because you know what? They want the business to be successful, and they do not see that they're getting in their own way of doing that right now. And they need to be able to do that, firstly, in a safe environment, potentially one-on-one with a coach or someone like one of us, where we can open up that space and help them see the opportunities that are currently just walking them by. They're not even, they're not even seeing them. They're there. And then the next bit is obviously then opening up the leadership team to actually understand the dynamics. And I often say, if we can get every single senior leader in the world living the values of the company and being okay to be challenged by anybody in the business if they are not showing up to live the values of the company, that will take us a long way to be able to have those brave discussions like Sheba was just saying, to be able to actually create the psychological safety where people feel okay with having those conversations grounded in the business values. Because you know what? Businesses have invested so much damn money in the last 10 years on getting really good business values. They've all got diversity, inclusion, equality. These are all within most of their values. And yet what we're seeing is, they're not honoring that in the way they're making decisions, in the systems they're setting up, in the way they're talking to people. And so my one ask is, raising the level of consciousness, but also just grounding every single decision you make as a business. How's that honoring our values? How's that dishonoring? Okay, you might not change the decision, but over time, if you keep on asking the question, you're raising your whole awareness of the business.
Yeah.
Kawtar, do you have something to add? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I absolutely resonate with what was said so far. And I think we also need to acknowledge that the main purpose of business is to create money. And as long as we're holding the belief that the only way to create money is to extract from people and resources, we're not going to be able to change because there isn't enough desire to change. And so the first thing is to really shift the perspective and recognize that there is data available that shows every business leader now that investing in people, investing in alignment between organizational values and communities that the organization serves actually creates more value for the business at the end. However, there is in that paradigm shift going to be a time where, yes, you may not make as much money, but it takes a firm decision in the sand at some point to say, you know what, it may not bring as much money for a year or two, but we are willing to walk our talk and we are willing to make this business serve something greater than just income. And I think that takes a certain decision that goes far beyond the mind. And not everybody is willing to do that. But if there was one thing that people would do, I would say educate yourself, because the data exists right now. We have all the data that it actually creates better, not only for the business, but for communities. And so drop the fear. Once the fear drops, everything else becomes easy.
Yeah. I think what I'm picking up over here is really the importance of course, listening, but listening to our people, listening to our team, investing in our people. But there's something that comes first, and it's what Sarah went into, and it's asking our leaders to do the actual work themselves. Because if they're not doing the work themselves, if they're not feeling safe to open up and be vulnerable and see their blind spots, then how can they expect their team to be open and vulnerable and share with them and have that conversation and tell them that 3 p.m. meetings aren't working for me? Because if they're not feeling safe, how can their people feel safe with them?
Yeah.
And so I think as women, whether you're a leader, whether whether in whatever capacity you're in right now, totally lost my frame of thought. It's going to come back eventually.
I think what you're saying is coming back to purpose. It's coming back to purpose. It's coming back to values, and it's coming back to realigning all of that for yourself as an individual and with the business, and being brave enough to step out of business where you recognize actually that's not in alignment. That doesn't serve me. That's not exciting enough for me. Putting yourself first.
Yes. And on that note, something that you've kind of touched on that I want to bring out here in the space is, as companies, as businesses, as organizations, yes, we all have inclusion and diversity and women's rights and all of that stuff and equality, employers, things that we write down on our website or on some sort of panel somewhere in our fancy offices. But how much of this is a checklist? And how much of this is actually woven into everyday business, into everyday action, into everyday decision, into everyday interaction, transaction within the business, with our clients and partners and the wider community of business? And I think these are the questions that I invite business leaders to be asking themselves. How much of my values and mission and motto and all of those beautiful things that we create in our branding strategy are just written words, and how much of it is actually integrated and ingrained in the culture of the business?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to feel uncomfortable with asking themselves even some of those questions. And I think you're all going to be nodding. It's like, we know that there is a massive gap still. You know, you only need to look at the Munich Security Council photo from 2 weeks ago. It's just a sea of white men, and then obviously the IMF, Christina's there, but that is it. You know, and we can't run a world where we're shutting out half of the voices. The voices aren't being heard in these rooms. And listening to the UN Secretary General at the start of the Committee for the Status of Women discussions this week, you know, they were very strong in saying, you know, we must promote women and girls into boardrooms, into, you know, into our communities, into politics, but also, and you know, giving them a seat at the table in the schools, and how we're actually promoting all these different ideas in schools. It's got to start that early, and we've got to tackle this at all the different levels. It's not just saying that, you know, it's one that size that's going to fit all, but actually, you know, look around you. And this is one of the questions I asked last week. And what does your senior leadership team look like? Is it just, you know, is it a very homogenous group? Because if it is, then actually you really do need to be bringing someone else in to help open your eyes as to see what's going on. I mean, you can see the diversity in the four of us today, and our backgrounds and where we're coming from, and, you know, our experience.
Totally unplanned. So it's totally completely coincidental.
It doesn't take much. And actually what I always see is like the beauty in diversity.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty and the depth that you can get to when you open up these spaces. And I'm sorry, I work in tech, I work in engineering spaces.
Mm-hmm.
We need innovation. Innovation doesn't come from a room of people that look and sound and speak the same, where they agree with each other all the time. We've got to get back to be able to have discourse, to have difficult conversations, to understand why there are different perspectives, and look for the opportunity in the middle. And I feel like we've lost that a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. We've gone too far trying to be nice to everyone because we thought that's what would make everyone comfortable. And actually what we've done is we've lost the ability to innovate, to have difficult conversations, and to be able to open up topics to create opportunities for business. It doesn't have to mean that, you know, it's going to be, everything's going to be around creating income. But you know what? Long-term opportunities where you can grow, where you can create a sustainable business.
Absolutely. I love that, Sarah. And we also know that innovation comes from psychological safety. You cannot innovate if you're not feeling safe. And to build on what you were saying, Hannah, what I would say to leaders to start is not just to look at how much of the values are actually baked into the day-to-day business, or how much are we walking our talk around diversity. I would say, look at why are you not in the places where you're not, and stand in front of your people and tell them. That's honesty, that's courage, that's integrity. Commit to what you're going to do about it and bring them on board with you to do it with you. That's vulnerability, and that's the leadership we need. I think we've been talking for way too long. I think what we need now is action, real, tangible commitments, and really to walk our talk. Anything below that, I don't think we're going to find our way out of the really difficult problems that our world is facing.
Yeah, you know what is interesting for me, right? So I think I shared this with Kawtar. In my country, we're a very matriarchal society. So we have the reverse of the problem the rest of the world has. We have more women in leadership than we do men. We've had a female premier. We have a female deputy governor. The attorney general is a female. We have the head of a utilities company is female. Like every sphere of society you can think of, we have a woman in leadership there, right? So our issue isn't a lack of women in leadership. Sometimes what I notice is that with organizations, and I'll use Grace Bay Resorts that I work with as an example, what I notice is that when you don't have a quota, when you don't have these check boxes, because we don't have a diversity and inclusion agenda as such, right? But there's this organic shift at the leadership table that took place. And one day we're sitting in a meeting and our managing director looked around the room and he was like, oh, 50% women in leadership. Great job, Sheba. And I hadn't really even thought about it, right? It naturally took place, but that goes back to just valuing people for who they are, putting gender aside. Like it's not about your gender. It's about the value that you bring to the role and the organization. And if we could just see people as valuable people and look at what their strengths are and what their giftedness is and how we can position them in areas where they can thrive, it just creates an environment where naturally you would begin to see more women ascending to leadership roles. What happens is we create these check boxes and these targets and quotas, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we just need to get this percentage. And so you just hire someone and put them in a role because you're trying to check a box. So it's no longer, the intent is lost. It's no longer about actually shifting and making a true change. It becomes about just presenting numbers. And so I think we just need to go back to basics. We are all gifted. We all have a contribution to make. We all have value to offer. What is that at an individual level? And then how do you position that person in the organization to be able to thrive in their role and to grow other leaders? And we would then naturally see the numbers increase, and right before our eyes, where we wouldn't even notice it until someone points it out.
Yeah. In fact, you've answered one of my talking points, which is, I hope I'm still audible. Please give me a, am I? Yeah? Okay. My connection is dropping, I think. Please let me know if I completely get out.
You're good.
Okay. So what I've heard leaders in business say, we want women in our leadership team. The space is there. We want to recruit, but where are the women? Where are they? They're not coming to the table. And what do you have to say about this? We've already started mentioning bits and pieces on this topic, but this is also a problem. And where do we start?
Can I know I just said a lot, but can I just say something? Like, they're not coming to the table. You need to invite them to the table. Like, you need to sponsor them. You need to identify talent, and you need to mentor them, coach them, develop them, prepare them, and give them opportunities. That's how it works. It's like, no, they're not coming because maybe they're looking from the outside and believing that there is no space at that table for me because the table is filled with men who all look alike and sound alike and think alike. And so I don't feel that I fit into that space. You have to be the bridge. You have to hold out your hand and say, hey, look, I see something in you. And I'm willing to make an investment of my time and resources in you and preparing you for a leadership role. And take their hand and take them through that journey, prepare them, and then give them the opportunity. That's how it works.
Yeah. Wow. And I'd like to add to that, Sheba and Hannah, if that's okay. I think we also need to look at why are women not coming into the table? Because one thing I know about women is that when the opportunities open up, women show up. Women work, they work hard, they work with integrity. And so what I also know is that there is a general culture right now that we're still working through, where women don't necessarily feel safe to be in the bigger leadership roles because they know they're not heard. It's one thing to be at a table. It's another thing to be there to do all the emotional labor and not be heard in the real solutions you're bringing in. Why is it that women are going to do the DEI work, for example, on the side? Why are they not actually getting paid for that full time? Why is their time, their emotional effort not really rewarded? And so that might be just one example, but I mean, if we're going to ask women to come to the table, we have to understand there needs to be a paradigm shift where they're truly valued. Otherwise, yes, they are going to leave.
Yeah. I think we're all saying something similar. Is like, if it's just a checkbox exercise to get women to the table, they will leave again. And this was definitely what you've seen from this McKinsey report, is like, they will just leave again because they recognize they can't create value. They're not willing to give that to just keep putting themselves through pain. And you know what? I was at a Women in Tech award ceremony on Friday night. If anything, people say they can't find women in tech. There were 300 of these women in tech.
Wow.
And you know what I loved about it? You look around the room and you see diversity in action. You see celebration in action. You see these women showing up for themselves and for each other. And it was phenomenal to feel the energy in that room. And there were maybe 10 men who were there as allies, as supporters, as other people. And I kind of almost wondered, what did they feel like? That must have taken a lot of courage to walk into that room, whereas normally, obviously, it's completely the other way around. But it was just, to me, it was like, yeah, where are all these women? Oh, no, they're everywhere. They're just not looking, sounding, feeling the same as what you're used to. So how can you bring them and help them feel like they belong in your business?
It's funny you say that, Sarah, because actually I've heard a business owner in tech actually saying what I saying that, like, where are the women? We have spaces for women, but they're not showing up in a tech industry related sort of panel discussion. So it was right on point, right on point there. Another point I feel like I want to bring to the space is, now I may offend some people, I don't know, because I think there are.
Now I'm interested.
Maybe not to the extent of offending, but maybe touch a few points when it comes to feminism and feminist movements. I feel like perhaps it's again coming to the psychological safety that Kawtar is talking about. Women may feel the need to compete against men in certain roles. Whereas what if there's no competition? What if you're just coming in because you're contributing the value that you have? And so if we drop this idea of quotas and women against men and why there should be more of this and less of that and vice versa, if we drop all that and simply, as Sheba said, come in because you're adding value, then we're going to start initiating that paradigm shift that Kawtar is talking about.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in here because this is something that is super important to me. And I was just writing a speech that I'm doing at the Berlin British Embassy on Monday on this. It's almost like we're taught to compete. The structures, the systems encourage us to compete. And especially where you're told, well, there's already a woman there. You almost like end up competing because there's only one space at the table for a woman. Or, you know, all of these things play in. And actually, you know what, when I interview all of the female leaders that I work with, there are two things that they say are success to them. The first one is helping other people not go through the same CRAP, the same crap that they've been through. And the other thing is creating a positive change. Now, if we need to see more leadership in the world, or better leadership in the world, as the Gallup stats will say, you know, actually, those are the kind of people we want in leadership. People who care, people who are actually trying to create changes in the system by ensuring that they're taking these steps. And when we get a powerful group of women and we help women actually get away from this trying to compete with each other or trying to compete with men, and we go to collaboration, co-creation, elevation, supporting each other's voices and raising each other up and recognizing there's enough room for all of us, that's the shift that we want to see in leadership. That's a shift that can help really move us towards that more sustainable future for life on Earth, is what I believe.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, because I'm so big on when you get there, help someone else. Like I want it to be easier for anyone than it was for me. And that's something I model. And so I am happy to hear you say that. You know, I shared today also with the ladies that I was speaking at the Women's Forum, that when I became a senior leader, I was the only Turks and Caicos Islander female Black senior leader. I was sitting around the table with mostly Caucasian men. But I had in that room a sponsor and a champion that was male, right? And every promotion that I've gotten, every opportunity that I've gotten in that organization, it was because he basically advocated for me. He believed in me. He extended opportunities to me. And so I appreciate men that take on that responsibility and say, you know what, I see value in her and I am going to create space for her. What he didn't realize when he was doing that is by creating space for me, he created space for other women, because I didn't arrive there and then say, well, I've arrived and to hell with every other woman who wants an opportunity. I did the same thing for them. I mentored them, I sponsored them, I coached them, and got them opportunities to be promoted into senior leadership. And that's what it's about. It's like, you know, each one teach one. Well, it's like each one mentor one, each one coach one, each one extend an opportunity to the other one. And that's how we shift. That's how the change happens. But if we ascend to leadership and we think that somehow we've arrived and that we don't owe it to anyone to give them opportunities, then we won't see a change. And I want to just take an opportunity to shout out to all the men who have been advocating for women and who have been supporting women and being champions in the workplace for women to have a seat at the leadership table, and not just have a seat, but when you get in that space, they listen, they support you, and they help you by using their power and influence to be able to affect some of the changes that you want to see in organizations.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Sheba. Yeah.
Yeah. And Hannah, if I can just add to that, and that will probably be my last point for today, go into the question that we have today. We're looking at, are we at a turning point? I think what we're discussing falls within, again, another paradigm of what we call feminine and masculine leadership, or left brain and right brain leadership, in more scientific terms. And women having come to the workplace in the numbers that we have, and to, you know, leadership spaces in our communities, has brought more of the right brain skills of empathy, of connection, of collaboration, of deep listening. And there's some form of equalization that's going to happen with time. But I think it's really important that you name that it's not about competition, because we are in this together. And for me, when I work for purpose or when I work for peace, that's really what it's about. We can only reach peace if we understand that we're doing this together. Like, there isn't a planet where men are going to live alone and a planet where women are going to live alone. The only way we can get through this is together. Mm-hmm. And so how can we stand together, champion each other, support each other where it's needed, and really create a different future for our kids? Because ultimately it's about, what world are we leaving behind for the next generations? Mm-hmm. And so we each have skills, we each have gifts, and they're complementary. When we find that out and we connect with each other from our heart and not our head, we're really going to be able to get there.
Nothing more to add.
Mic drop.
Good night. Ladies, we've touched on a lot of points. We've touched on female leadership in the future and what that's looking like. We've touched on the competitiveness, rather, or what we're trying to drop. We've spoken about checklists and adopting cultures versus checklists and quotas. And we've talked about so many things. I've actually just have a lot of scribbles right now, and I want to come back. I want to come back into this conversation, and I encourage, for those of you who are listening, come back. There's just been such golden nuggets in here that you can apply to yourself, to your business, to your own leadership. And I invite you to ask yourself the powerful questions that have been dropped in here, and use the insights that have been shared amongst us today. Do we have any parting comments before we start wrapping this up? Ladies?
Yeah. Well, I would have one last one, and that would be to say to the people who are in leadership positions and who feel the strain of the responsibility and don't necessarily know what to do. You don't have to do it alone. As a leader, we know leadership can be lonely. We know that it can be exhausting, and we are not expecting everyone to have the answers. All you need is the real, genuine desire to create change. And all the resources are available. Just reach out to someone who can actually support you in an authentic conversation where you can drop your own masks as the leader, because it starts with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the only thing, like you've said, is it starts with each and every one of us. And actually, kind of another way of saying probably the same thing is the discomfort that you're feeling today is your calling to start making a change. Because you know what? Yes, going through change is uncomfortable, but the discomfort in knowing it's there and ignoring it and just feeling like you're batting up against it the whole time, over the long term, that is not sustainable. At least when you go and deal with it, a bit like Kawtar was saying, it's like actually that gives you the opportunity to work through it and create something out of it, create an opportunity and create something better for everyone.
Very good. I mean, there isn't much to say after that, right? But I'll probably just leave the audience with a question. You know, we know what the challenges are. So the question becomes, are we prepared to be a part of the solution, or are we going to be a part of the problem? And if we're prepared to be a part of the solution, as Kawtar said, there are resources, there's help available. You don't have to go it alone. And so tap into the resources that are available, some of them right here on this platform, right? That we can come into organizations and assist you with having those difficult conversations in safe spaces where you can take the mask off and begin to unearth some of the underlying challenges and come up with a plan of action for how you're going to move forward and address the challenges. So are you a part of the problem, or are you going to be a part of the solution?
I love that. I always say that to lead others, you must first lead yourself, right? So it always starts with us ultimately. As I said before, creating safe spaces for others to step up, to rise up, to the occasion, to take that space. We need to do the work or create that space ourselves, right? And as I mentioned, we have all been selected speakers for the Women Thrive Summit, which is coming up very soon, opening on the 20th of March. Ladies, would you like to share a little bit about your talk and what it is that you're doing there at the summit? Who would like to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. So my talk is titled Girl, Get Up and Lead. And LEAD is an acronym that stands for Live Every Day Above Defeat. As I shared a bit earlier, I am a widow. I lost my husband 8 years ago. And so my book is Get Up and Lead. And it's sort of a memoir and a self-help book all in one. And it really encourages persons to learn how to navigate tough spaces and thrive, right? You know, we all go through things. Life is challenging, but I firmly believe that we have the grit and the grace that we need to navigate those tough circumstances. And so my talk is going to be about helping persons to, one, discover what their limiting beliefs are, and then how they can overcome those limiting beliefs, and how are you going to get clear on what your picture of success is, and mapping that out so that you can take strategic action towards a life that you absolutely love and enjoy. There's no point in being here and living if you're going to be unfulfilled and stressed to the max and not feeling as if you're accomplishing anything. You want to love what you do and love the life that you live, despite all of the challenges that you're going to encounter in life. And so my talk is going to inspire you to take action towards just that, your picture of success, the life that you design for yourself, that you would absolutely love and enjoy.
I'm so
Beautiful.
excited for that.
Yeah, thank you, Sheba. And my talk is right after Sheba's, actually, in the lineup. And mine is called Purpose-Led Leadership, How Your Purpose Heals You and Changes the World in the Process. And my message is really that as humanity, as a species, we are really evolving. And because our basic needs have been met for much longer than ever before, it's really natural that our soul is calling us to the self-actualization needs. And so in my book, Unfolding Peace, I really explain 9 principles and 9 beliefs that if we were only to confront ourselves and change those beliefs that are disempowering, we could create a world that actually supports everyone to thrive. And so purpose for me has been the vessel that has carried all of that. And I'm really excited to share more with whoever is going to be there to hear more about it. Yeah, thank you so much for having us today.
I love these sessions, and I love just listening to what everyone's going to be talking about. My talk's called "The Future of Leadership is Female and Why the World Needs You." So a really common train around actually the things that we actually need in terms of leadership are the things that we are undervaluing most at the minute in the corporate world, and how we can turn that on its head and really stand up as the leaders who we are, and enable our own voices to be heard, a bit like what she was saying earlier, allow ourselves to step into those conversations and allow ourselves to step out and go and find something that we're more passionate about, that is more aligned to our purpose, to our values, if it's not going to be able to be in that space. And this is because I see, like I said, so many people who were like me 5 years ago, who'd almost they'd switched off, they were so safe, so secure, they're waiting for retirement almost. It's like, no, I want these people engaged and passionate and excited by what they're investing their energy in. Because you know what, you can make so much more of an impact in the world when you show up aligned to your strengths and passionate about what you're doing, knowing the reason that you're there. And this is a space where actually, you know what, you're going to have a hell of a lot more fun doing it. So hence I can see that the alignment with everyone else's talks in terms of, enabling people to make these kind of changes.
Amazing. I'm so excited for this. You have no idea. The lineup of speakers at the summit is just epic. We've been meeting for the last few months, and it's really wonderful to see these powerhouses coming together to share all of their wisdom and expertise. My talk is called Why Fit In When You Are Made to Stand Out. And it's coming from my own struggle with trying to fit in, always constantly trying to fit in, but always doing total opposite anyways, because I just can't. It's about dropping the scripts. It's about dropping the masks and the identities. It's about throwing out the rule books that someone else created, right? That you're not aligned to. And it's really about finding that voice, finding your purpose, finding your passion, so that you can create a standout brand. You can be seen in your own unique powers. You can stand in your own right and claim your stage. So this is what it's going to be all about. And I hope it inspires or activates and empowers somebody to take their business to the next level, take their branding to the next level, come out with their story that they've been hiding for decades. I don't know what it will do for you. So yeah, that is going to be my talk. And on that note, ladies, thank you. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, for your stories, for your valuable insights that you bring to the table. Full of gratitude. Thank you so much for being here. I have no other words.
It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank
you.
you.
Hannah.
Thank you. Well,